Talk show. Recorded live.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be across the nation or around the world. Once again, you are listening to the VMware Communities Roundtable Podcast. This is podcast number 700. My name is Eric Nilsson, and with me today, I have my favorite co-host, Corey Romero. Today is Wednesday, July 31st, 2024. Corey Romero, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Episode 700. Wow. I'm impressed, Eric.
Yeah, John Troyer started it, and he ran the episodes all the way up to like 250 or 267, something like that. And then he left, and I was like, do I have to keep doing this? And the VP I work for, Jeff Spicer, said, yeah, why not? And I'm like, I'm not the guy. But you know what I learned? And John Troyer said this. He said, just keep doing them. You'll get better. Right. I don't know if I never ever got better, but that's good. The Bay Area today, Corey, it is a beautiful sunny day here. We've got some mild weather going on that's cooled off a little bit. So it's like a nice 75-degree sunny day. Color of the Bay is a nice greenish blue. That pretty day today. We can't ask for a nicer day in California. The heat wave is kind of dissipated. Hopefully for the rest of the world, it also, cools off a little bit. Corey, I don't know how the weather's out there in Utah, but
Yeah, the weather's been nice. High 80s today. It's been warm. We've had it's been fairly warm, and then we've had some really hot days, right? Up to 100. Utah 100 degrees is hot, right? And so a couple fires here and there, but all in all, having a great summer. Everything's fantastic.
Awesome. Well, on the show today, we're going to be talking to Edward Haletky. He's a security expert. He's a developer. He's a community evangelist. He's a vExpert. He's all around been with us building the VMware community since I think we all started back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. And so Edward's here today to talk about, what it's like building a community and being a legacy contributor to the community. So we're going to just pick his brains about everything he's done in the community ecosystem, as well as what does it mean now to be in the community? Now that we are Broadcom and we're continuing on, we get to talk to him about what does it mean for him? What does VCF mean for him? What does he see his role in giving back to the community? We always hear about that. So we got Edward on the show today to talk about everything we're going to pick his brains and learn everything he's got going on. But before we do that, Corey, let's just get to the news, or let's talk a little bit vExperts first. I know are apps open still? Are they closed?
No, apps are closed, and we're going to announce on Monday. So this Monday we will announce all of the new vExperts for 2024 second half.
Nice. Well, hopefully things are picking back up. I know that it feels like we went through the low of Broadcom acquiring things and changing things up. And there you go. Yep. I feel like we've come through the low. We are gaining momentum again in the community, in people that are participating. Even Explore registration, I'm watching the numbers, shoot up, which is great. So it'll be fun to hear how many other people have been able to, get back into the community and, do some work and apply for the vExpert. So looking forward to seeing that happen. And then you've got what going on at Explore?
So coming into Explore, we've got a couple things happening. So we've got blogger passes for Barcelona. So emails are going to go out tomorrow for those who will receive a pass and those who won't receive a pass. This will leave the folks who didn't receive a pass time to register and still take advantage of the early bird pricing for Barcelona. And then what we're also doing is we're doing a call for videos. So similar to what we did for US for Las Vegas, we're doing for Barcelona as well. So vExperts made a handful of videos on why you should attend the conference. And so an email is going to go out on Friday on details on exactly what that is, what we're looking for, and how to participate in that.
Great. So early bird registration still open for Barcelona. Is that they're correct?
That's correct. It was extended.
I heard that they had extended itself. And I thought they had extended the US version. I'm glad they didn't make any announcement, right? Because I'm like, how long are they going to keep early bird open? The conference is in 27 days. Like what? But this makes sense. It's actually for Europe. And so for all those, we're expecting a great turnout in Europe. In fact, this might be the first time that the Europe reg numbers is higher than the US, and it's a little bit because the European V forums don't happen anymore. So it's either going to go in Europe or you're going to go in the US. So interesting to see how Europe reg tracks this year. I know we're excited about Vegas. Registration looks good. Sessions are filling up. Scheduled builders been out. So that's happening. We have the hackathon has launched. There are, I think, 3 teams now. If you're going to be in Vegas and you want to do something geeky on Monday night, we have a great room up in the main area, the main hallway of the Venetian this year. So it won't be hard to get to. No trains, planes, or automobiles. You're just going to come over, hang out with us. We're going to have food and drink. We'll go from 7 till 10:30. We have open categories. So if you want to just drop in, we're going to have some PowerShell sessions at the beginning so you can kind of have some assignments so you can work on some tables of drop-ins. But we also have, I think, 4 teams that have been defined. So if you want to go register for the hackathon, go to blogs.vmware.com/code /code. So blogs.vmware.com/code. Tweet it out, let people know. There are 4 teams out there, and we're looking for a couple more team captains. If you have an idea on the blog, it shows how to form up a team and register yourself and get your team exposure so that you can get some people working on your idea. You can start now and work on it for the next month. I think it's open now, and with whoever you have on a team, and then show up on Monday night, work with your team together, and then present what you built. If you aren't on a team, like I say, we have open drop-in. We're expecting to have tables available for those who just want to drop in, and we'll have some assignments for you, and we'll give some prizes out to those drop-in people as well. So that's Hackathon. There is a community leadership party. I think all the V experts are invited. A lot of the VMUG leaders are invited. Some champions are invited. So we're going to have a big party on Saturday, on Tuesday night. And I think news went out that Hawk will be visiting. So if you got that invite and you want to come to Vegas, you'll get a chance to meet Hawk. He'll be there for photos, as well as he's going to do some speaking. So you'll get to hear what's on his mind when it comes to the community. So lots of activity going on. Excited about it. I think sessions for Europe have been accepted, and notifications, I think, have gone out. So you should have started to see your notifications if you were going to be speaking in Barcelona. I think that's what we got in the news. Anything else I'm missing, Corey? I think that's everything.
Yeah, I think that's it. That's all I have.
All right. Well,
I do want to mention early bird. Even though early bird pricing was extended, it was only extended till the 5th. And so you only have till August 5th to register to get that early bird pricing. So make sure you get that done.
Okay, great. I know Venetian still has hotel rooms in Vegas. I know there's cheaper hotels rooms in Vegas. Our theme is, everyone's going to be there. You should be there too. So, that's going to be our theme. We're going to take a picture of Edward, put him up there. I haven't even talked to Edward yet, whether he's going to be at Explore this year or not, but we'll get to it in a minute. And so let's get to Edward. And we do this typical thing, Edward. We always ask, like, how long have you been in the VMware ecosystem? What do you do for a living? Give us a 2-minute elevator pitch of who you are.
All right. Well, my name's Edward Haletky. I've been in the community since VMware Beta, Workstation Beta.
Workstation Beta. Wow. Yeah,
which I still have a copy of, by the way.
Nice.
And so very, very early, I actually started virtualizing on VM86 before VMware Workstation, and playing around with all sorts of things. I always liked having one computer that could do anything I wanted it to do, instead of having to have 17 computers, one a Mac, one this, one that, and just had to run 17 different operating systems. Eventually, that's all I do now is virtualize. I am a architect, inventor, author. I can't talk about my job, but I pretty much do it all. I'm the advocate for virtualization where I'm at. I'm
Yeah.
also the security guy for virtualization and actually any large platform where I'm at. But that's what I've been doing for years.
Yeah. And I know, just as an aside, I'm looking at your camera view, and if you want to go look at what Edward looks like, you can go to youtube.com/vbarbecue. We got the camera feeds. We do live stream. Most of you listen to it online on TalkShoe or on Apple iTunes. But in the background, he's got like 30 or 40 of the, like, I think it's O'Reilly tech books, right?
Yeah, some people have a few animals.
Right.
I own the zoo.
Yeah, you got the zoo.
I got the zoo.
Every
And
once
those
in a while.
actually, those are used books. I have a whole, the one right beside me is actually my retired shelf. I no longer use them. I haven't cracked them open probably in 20 years. But I used to be a heavy 3D graphics guy. And those are all my 3D graphics, 2D graphics books. I actually did programming of X11 back in the day before it became X.org. I used to do talks at Exhibition, which was the name of the X conference. Every year they had it, I did a talk. As a matter of fact, my very first talk was there. And the people that I went to I was there, did a talk on how to do a widget with inside of X Windows that was a 3D graphics widget. In the audience was SGI, rapidly and furiously taking notes because they didn't do it yet. And we did when I was working at IBM at the time. And then I went to go party with the guys from Apple. Those guys are great to party with. So we went over to Santa Cruz from where we were. It was actually a lot of fun.
That's I have a series of books as well. I don't have as big a collection as you. I have like maybe 15, right? Just so people that are listening to this, like he's got like 50 by the looks of it.
Several hundred actually.
Yeah, that's what I would say. And my wife keeps saying, why can't we throw these away? You never open them. And I'm like, yeah, they're just, when they put me in the coffin, they can just dump them all in there. And I'll just, that'll be my legacy. That'll just rot with me. Right. Cause it's like, you've been through all of these books, right?
It's surprising how many times you use them. I have a book that's wirebound that I actually have used in one of my jobs. I was dealing with, Digital Equipment Corporation. They didn't explain how to do it very well, but I found it in one of my references, and back then you faxed the page to people, and then it's like, oh, now it makes sense. That's why you need the underscore in front of everything, because the compilers just didn't understand it. And they were taking Fortran and tying it to C, and it was actually kind of fun. But yeah, my books here, I've got books on just about everything. This is the virtualization shelf. There's a lot of virtualization there. There's some forensic stuff there. I got my own books, of course, which I have published 4 of them.
Yeah. Now with the advent of the internet and everything online, it's kind of like the last time I bought a book has been like not for a while, right? Like I had probably 7 years since I've acquired a new book, which is like bad.
It's funny. I still use these. I crack them open, take notes. I don't like. I'm an old school person. I can't stand doing things on my iPad because the visuals and the feel is not right. I'd rather have the book in my hand.
I just haven't acquired any new books. I still like having books, no question.
Oh, I've acquired new books, but they're all electronic right now because of copies of books I already have. Because I do have to get rid of some books to make room for more. So just the way it is.
Well, so like I said, let's talk community. Do you remember where you originally got involved with VMware's community? I think it was VMTN, but I don't know that for a fact.
It was actually VMTN. It was in 2004. I was probably one of the first dozen people that put a post up there. I'm sure Corey could figure this out, but I'm pretty sure I was like in the first 6 months of it existing.
Those were fun times because the platform was really fast. It was lightweight. It hadn't moved to Java yet, and so
Oh, it was great.
The
It was
platform
great fun.
was an amazing platform. The point system
flew.
was right out in front of everybody. Everybody could see what many points you were getting. It reminds me of today's Pokemon Go, right? Like everybody was doing everything to get the points and level up. It was a great platform.
It was very fast. It was not about marketing. It was just about answering questions. My very first question was on Workstation, and then one on ESXi, as I was dealing with 152 at the time, and it was a very complex install for the time period. It was an 8-socket dual core, 16-core machine, and problems were happening. And it's actually is kind of interesting, as that led to me talking to various people inside of VMware. Mustafa and I had lots of conversations. Mustafa Khalil and I had lots of conversations about some very, very early problems that everybody blamed on virtualization when it was really the hardware. But getting people to realize it was the hardware was very, very difficult, just to say the least. But we had a lot of every time we met at VMworld, we just commiserate over all these problems we had in the past that, to be honest, we still have to this day. People still blame software when it ends up being a hardware problem.
I felt in those days specifically, the community was very in touch with the engineering, right? And
extremely. Yeah. We didn't have a direct link, but the company I worked for, which was Digital Equipment Corporation, had support through engineering. So while I was still on the community to get some questions answered more quickly, or an attempt to get them answered quickly, the engineers were responding anyways. So it was a very different feel to the community than it is today. It was more it was the beginning steps. People who knew virtualization were far and few between. People who had questions about it and were brave enough, and I will say brave, to put their first questions on the forum,
right?
Because you're really putting yourself out there. That took off. And then as people like myself learned more and more and more about how things run, and were able to get the questions answered through regular support means and through the forum, we just contributed back to the forum. I remember trying to get there was a list on the top of the most recent 10 posts, the most recent post in various categories. I used to try to get my name in all of them. But it wasn't answering
I remember questions. That box.
Yeah, you remember that? It was right in the front.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just not just me doing that. We would all try to do it. But it wasn't answering questions with, oh yeah, I agree with you. It was really giving more detail, or even asking more questions of our own to that post. So it was actually very much giving back and also trying to get more information. It was really about just sharing information. Oh, I discovered XYZ, right? Or, here's an answer I got for that helped me. It wasn't a Me Too type of thing. It wasn't I agree type post. But we just never did that. We were trying to share what we learned, and we were learning something new every day. I mean, one of the things that came out, and actually came out years, and it's in both for all my books, is there were 2 errors that came out in the very beginning with ESXi 152 and 2 that were amazing, because we were starting to we were starting to really stress the limits of the hardware. And because we didn't have shielded memory, we were doing quantum tunneling. So there was an attack out today, if you can do it, it's called row hammer, where you bang on, you basically hammer a row of memory, and if you don't have shielding, you don't have the right setup, it would actually quantum tunnel to other memory,
Segments of the memory, yeah, in the chip.
really
Yeah,
close to
right.
it, and pull data across that it should never be able to see, and impact what you saw in the other bank.
Okay,
That actually
I was,
happened really on. I was dealing with a customer, and
I
this
was,
came out in one of the forum posts, because we just really didn't know what was happening. And it ended up being that they didn't get shielded memory. And when we gave them shielded memory, the problem went away.
I was today days old when I knew that you could quantum tunnel across, a chip to get at extra data.
Yeah.
I had never heard of this before. That's fascinating. Like,
Yeah, well, we were doing it anyways because early days of virtualization, people didn't think shielded memory was useful. Now I don't buy anything but shielded memory, because the density of these units that we have today are even worse than back when we had the single core machines.
right. Yeah. So getting back to community though, like, so VMTN went for a while, but then, oddly enough, social media, blogs and Twitter changed a little bit of the dynamic that we had. One, we went to a bad platform. I won't curse it, but so we lost the Jive forums platform that was fast and speedy, right? But at the same time, social media and blogs and other community channels start to crop up to where people start building their own content, right? Like, so, people started blogging, started building their own channels, and they realized that they didn't have to spend their life on VMTN. They could spend their life on their blogs talking about these topics. There's still people that were on VMTN. There still are to this day. But I feel like the community expanded and blossomed out to a bunch of different channels now, right? And it's not just on a single corporate channel. It's everybody's channel, right? That you find content, right?
Absolutely. And what we used to do, or I used to do, is I would write a blog post about whatever I was working on, to problem I had and what solution I came up with. And then I would push that out to all the social media. I was never really truly on social media. I mean, I barely respond on it, and always have been, like, very focused on pushing out my blog or my work. I wasn't there to really socialize. Originally, when Twitter came out, we actually had a list of the experts, and we all just subscribed to each other's feeds. And that was fine. But now with Twitter/X, it's just if someone contacts me directly, then I'll respond to them. But that's years and years difference.
Yeah, right.
But I've always looked at social media a little bit differently as a security person than most people. So I use it to push my content out that I put on my blog or even my books.
Yeah.
And that's really what I use it for. But it really is a way to get that message out, because people are listening to it.
And that's what I'd say, that it is there's multiple communication mechanisms now. There's podcasts, right? There's video vlogger people, there's blogger people. There's now, I even look at William Lamb. It's like, really, if you want to learn what William's doing, go to his GitHub account, right? And look at his projects, and then he has conversations on GitHub itself, right? Where he's engaging with people. So channels have bifurcated to different places and contents out there, right? So
yeah, I mean, I have my blog, I have my GitHub repository, and I do converse with people there all the time. I have my books, so I wrote the books. To me, that was a big deal. That was my giving back to the communities so much, because quite frankly, a book you don't make money off of, a tech book, The
Yeah.
bestseller is only 10,000 copies.
Right. You make a
Yeah.
couple dollars per copy, so it's not that big a deal.
It's not a huge deal, but you do it's a labor of love. You can't do it without doing it like that. And that's what I did. I mean, to me, the books I wrote were just extensions of the stuff I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it was the story I wanted to tell. The security story, here's the problems I face, here's my solutions. And that's a lot of the blog posts about too. Funny thing is, my blog, I actually forgot I wrote about something, and I went to search on Google for
Answer the
something.
problem, and you found your own answer.
The answer was in my own blog. Yes.
Right.
So I was like, oh, I've
That's
faced this
funny.
before, of course. So, yeah, definitely problem solving. And the community changed when I first went to explore, and when the vExperts were formed. I believe is like the very first fundamental shift, because the community was a bunch of people that didn't know each other. The community, we only knew each other on the VMTM forums. We all had handles. Okay. And you see my handle is TexIWell, and always has been. No one knew who Edward Haletky was. They only knew TexIWell because that's what was on the forum. And that's what was on my social media. And at the time was very little of that. Remember the very first VMware, the conference I went to was in 2009. And no one knew who I was until I put my Twitter handle or my VMTM forum handle on my badge.
Right.
And then the world changed again. So the conferences, the forum, the social media, everybody has a brand. Mine happens to be TexIWell. And more people know me as that than know me by my name. And in some ways, I actually like that. From a security perspective, I absolutely like that. But it just means the brand has worked. And the forum helped me start that. The community helped me start that. And we helped start everybody else's brand too. William Lamb started there.
Yeah.
He answered questions. He started with that. We used to talk all the time. There's a lot you can do in the forum. I even presented at VMworld with William Lamb. That was actually a rather interesting presentation. It was good.
So let me move up the timeline again, right? Like then we have now, the experts happened, conferences happened. I feel like we had a heyday. Then cloud started happening, right? And the tension between cloud and on-prem and the SDDC, and then cloud, and what does it mean if VMC and AWS and other things like that, where we started losing focus on the data center. I wouldn't say losing focus, but I'd say we grew yet again, right? And I'm not sure, whether that's good or bad, but I would say now we're in this space where I feel like we're focused back on the data center, right? Like the products really haven't changed that much, other than some of the cloud services that we dreamed up and then made go away again. But if you look at vSphere, NSX, vSAN, all of that, and if I look at what Broadcom is doing, is just putting it all back together and making one big division that's just focused on the data center and SDDC. What's your impression of where we're going now? You've seen some of the announcements that we've done with regard to they are just focusing on one division. They pulled all the products. They got rid of the blockchain implementations and various other odd products that we had, and they've focused back on vSAN, NSX, and vSphere, put them all in one division. For me, this seems natural because I like the data center. I think the data center is a big marketplace. What's your impression of where we are now transitioning to?
Well, back in the day, it was very hard to show people how they all fit together. I'm going to just be outright. Even some of your CEOs had trouble on the big stage trying to explain how it all fit together. It was just very difficult because of the way each product worked. They weren't integrated. Several years later, it became easier because they started being better integrated. They started being better explained. Now, people understand. I mean, as soon as they mentioned VCF and what was in it, it all made sense to me because I've been playing in that arena forever and I have used all those products together. The cloud part, I never really touched. I understood it. I mean, people ask me, well, would you expand to AWS or Azure for VMC? And it's like, yeah, absolutely. Because of the ability to transition easily from same technology, the same technology with a different management stack. And then even that was covered. You know, the management was still vCenter, it was still, you do the same thing, you program it the same way. So it all makes sense to me. I use most of those products or have in the past and still do in certain areas of my life. And they all fit together. But it took a long time to get them to fit. Right? That was, you buy products, you try to fit them together, and it's like a shoehorn. You got to put it in there, but then you have to integrate it. And that's where we're at. We're in an integrated state. And I think that's fine. I would rather see that than something that is not. Because it's easier to use when you integrate it.
Yeah, there's that is the message that we're getting back from VCF leadership and from anybody you talk to inside of VMware, is that the main objective is to just make the dream come true, make it integrate it, make it work, rework pieces that when we bought Nicira and it didn't really fit completely well. Like they're building new pieces to make sure that whatever it pulls together, ties together, works together, easy button it from install to patching to everything together. So I don't know if that'll work.
NSX is a different beast. I look at NSX as two sides of the same coin, but I only use one side. I'm more of the NSX security side. The networking side doesn't really buy me much from a security perspective over what I can do with everything else. It's different. It's not better. It's just different. Can you do the same thing? Sure, no problem. Is it the same? No. It's just a different approach to it. It's more of a networking approach than it is a distributed firewall, distributed IDS approach, or even some of the other things we've done, you guys have done. But NSX has its place, but it also is still difficult at scale. It's difficult to put in a small environment, even to this day. That's why I only concentrate on NSX security, because for small environments, it's actually perfect. For large environments, it's great too. It's a scale problem. So what I see now is just scale. You need to scale to larger than where you are. That's what I would say is the direction you need to go. Integrate everything and scale it up.
Getting back to your, I'm doing a little bit of a whiplash here, but getting back to GitHub and your projects. I know you had some projects that you were also working on over the years. Do you still keep some of that stuff going?
I keep it all going.
Okay.
So one of the very first projects I worked on was a security operations center for VRLI, vRealize Log Insight, or ARIA Ops for Logs, or whatever they call it now. It's an ARIA product, and it still works actually. I built a dashboard with a bunch of security stuff, and it had some NSX pieces to it, and it has pieces that actually are part of a product I put together a long time ago before I joined the company I'm with now. And it was all just about how do you visualize the security. So that one I still maintain. It doesn't need many updates for all the new versions of vSphere, which I test it out every time. I haven't made a change in years, to be honest, because the APIs, the logs are still the same. The key thing in that is knowing what is happening by user, so that when you look at it, you can literally tell, oh, that was a user that shouldn't be logging in. So identity and access controls, log analysis really on all those, and also knowing what was happening at the command line. So if something was happening at the command line, you could see it. And that should never happen. And the thing is, that's how ransomware spreads today. They do things at the command line. If you could see it, you can stop it. So the whole idea is to keep that visualization going. And that's been the same. But yeah, if I add, people ask me to add some things to it, I do. And that still goes on. The next thing I did was VMware had the VMware Software Manager. It was written for Windows. I don't run Windows, I run Linux. So I ported it over to Linux and created Linux VSM. And with the Broadcom change, that all has to change, and I'm actually still working on it. I'm actually probably about 90% of the way there to getting it working again. It's just everything changes, so that has to change. The core part of it has to change. As a matter of fact, everything I was doing, I had to change because of the way Broadcom does their protection. Perfectly fine, just have to find a way to make it work. As I said, I'm close. I just need more time. The key thing is that that's an invaluable tool. I download all my bits that I'm allowed to get all the time. And that was helping me stay updated, which is also a security thing. You got to stay up to date with all the patches and all the software. And yeah, that's still ongoing, just taking a lot longer than I expected because I went through 3 mechanisms before I came across one that actually worked. So again, you have to go with the flow and
Well,
change and know everything that you're doing. So
to
that's
make-
still being worked on.
to make you feel better, everybody inside of VMware is also taking their time making all kind of systems work for, I think, the very same reason, right? Like you go through, Broadcom has different ways of doing things. They're not bad, they're not good, they're just different. Yep,
Yeah.
that's it. Nothing wrong with them. They're good people and good platforms, and just different. And it's taking us some time to, learn how to do about almost everything. I say every day there's a new thing that is not working or is broken or has issues that we have to go solve. And it's not that anybody did anything wrong. It's just that we just never noticed that this new piece didn't even work, and we didn't even realize it yet. Right.
And I have something what I call the base installers. The base installers are how I install my tool suite. So I have basically, it's all Ansible driven. It was my way of learning Ansible. So I have base installers I still maintain, and I keep running on all the different forms of Linux distributions, Ubuntu, Debian, WSL2, Mac OS even, and Rocky, Alma, and RHEL. And used to be CentOS, but it's no longer available, so I just don't. But these installers are crucial to my own development because what I use them to install my own stuff. I use them to install my machines.
Right.
So I maintain my own environment using these base installers, which I share, but I have in there installers for Linux VSM. I have installers for the Linux VMA, a virtual machine administrator, which was an appliance from VMware at one time, and they dropped it. My VMA installs the SDK, ESX tools, right? It installs PowerShell actually, and Power NSX and Power CLI. So, and VMA and the VSM and DCLI, VC2E, basically whatever I could find that was out there, I just kind of install. So you have this tool suite that people can use all in one place. Is it safe? Yeah, to a certain extent. You just got to know how to use it and not blow it up. Some of these tools are not like the most security conscious because of the way they store files. I also wrote a tool that would help me automate the install of OVAs. It's an OVF. It uses OVF tool on steroids. Basically, it tries to figure out and uses YAML files to fill in the blanks of all the answers, so that you could literally create an installer for all the OVAs and just push them out, including vCenter if you wanted to. Now, granted, I personally just use your tool for vCenter, but for everything else, I designed and built a tool that just kind of pushes all the OVAs out that I use, which is nice. Those tools are still I maintain everything. I test them out once a year, pretty much, fix them if they're broken. Some of them I constantly use, so I'm constantly fixing them. And others, I get questions from the community. Like Linux VSM has always been I get questions about, oh, why not Broadcom? Why not this OS? And it's like, okay, I'll test it on that OS because I don't know what people are using. I only know what I use. So I need the community to come back and tell me what they're using so I can maintain them and get it working on them. And mostly it's just install because it's just a shell script. It's nothing special. Mm-hmm. So the installer is what you need to concentrate on.
Where are people reaching out to you? Are they actually, on
GitHub?
On GitHub, just directly on GitHub, right?
Yeah, or through the vExpert forum, not the vExpert. Well, we had a Slack at one time. Now we have Discord. Yeah, so I get contacted on both still.
I would assume all your projects are on GitHub. Is that right?
All my projects are on GitHub. Yeah, yes, okay. Except for a few that I cannot share.
Yeah.
For various reasons, because they contain so I only put projects out there that are generic that would work for everybody. If I have, for example, one of my Ansible projects I have is really specific to me, I'm not going to share that.
Right. Yeah.
But I will share everything else that's not specific to me. Like I have installers for Libre and NMS. I have installers for PowerShell separately. I have installers for, getting SE Linux to work, for example. And I'm working on one for just getting the NVIDIA drivers installed into a VM or into anything. So it's really kind of a cool set of things. If it's generic, I'll put it out there. If it's like I'm going to put something really private to me, I won't. So yeah, they're all out there. I try to keep them as generic as possible. It's my mindset, so it really is just exposing what I do. I'm kind of old school in a lot of ways. I don't go for really fancy ways of doing things. And I don't assume that Ansible's installed everywhere or everything's installed. I actually have an installer that's a shell script that installs Ansible if it's not there. I'm assuming nothing's there. Like I use minimal installs and I just add the bits I need. So I wrote it for that. And I actually literally use that same script everywhere internally. So yeah, every installer I create, I put out there unless it's something personal.
Nice.
When,
for example, a mail server is personal. Why? Because of the way you have to deal with host names. I'm not going to put out a host name that is mine, right? Those are my internal host names. I don't share those. Those are things that I won't put out there unless I can generify it in some way. But I do use the same installers, the same playbooks everywhere. And they're out on 99% of them are on GitHub.
Nice. What is the GitHub URL? Like how do you find you?
Text I will everywhere.
Okay.
Including on GitHub.
TEXIWILL.
Correct.
If you're listening on iTunes. Okay, so as we come up to the top of the hour here, which I think we have a hard stop at 1, so I think we have seven more minutes. A couple things pop into my mind. One, what do you think the future of the data center is? some people say, well, all the workloads are going to cloud. I don't believe so. So what do you think the future of vSphere is? Like, what's your expectation over the rest of your career, I guess I would say, around, VMware and data center operations and so forth? We'll ask that, and then I'll ask you what other books you'd like to read, or what are the cool things that you think are going to happen?
I'm a platform architect, so what I look at is every form of virtualization. I'm no longer just tied to vSphere. I look at everything, and I run multiple hypervisors even at my own lab, because that's what I do. The next, I see more security coming to it. A better handling of virtual TPMs, trusted platform modules, are absolutely required for various new operating systems, for example. I see that growing across all of the hypervisor landscape in the data center. I also see it growing in the cloud. I see things like HCX becoming much more prevalent and more and more useful, because cloud is a burst mode thing for a lot of people. It's not, as small companies, they're going to be there. The large companies, they have data centers and they're not going to get rid of them. Why? Because they run things that just don't run in the cloud, right? There is hardware that is still in use to this day that there is no cloud that can run it. So it's not special hardware. It's just hardware that's been sold for many, many, many years that does its thing and does it extremely well. There's also cost issues. You got to really weigh, when you're looking at the cloud, you got to weigh those costs. So if you wanted to put a Hadoop cluster somewhere, for example, is it more cost efficient to put it in on site or in the cloud? That you got to measure that. AI is huge. Everybody's trying to do AI learning and AI chatbot type things and other forms of AI or machine learning. And the choice is, do I do it in the cloud or do I do it on site? And that's a cost issue more than anything. You got to weigh the cost of running AI workloads, which are incredibly compute or GPU intensive. That costs money.
Yeah, that's right.
You got to look at it from each entity has to look at it from a cost perspective. Is it cheaper to have it so you can manage it, or have somebody manage it for you? And you buy it and you can reuse it and reuse it and reuse it until the wheels fall off, pretty much? Or do you spend the money in the cloud where you don't own anything, but you're renting it all? And you got to figure out what that cost benefit is. I don't see that question changing. People going, oh, I'm going to go to cloud. It's like, look, always look at your costs. Small businesses have made mistakes of leaving machines on for too long, and then they get a $30,000 bill for something that they expected only be a couple $1,000s. That's a huge problem. It still is a problem, even with the software to take care of it. You got to weigh those. Big business, small business, individuals, it doesn't matter. You have to look at it from that perspective. At least that's what I think. But I don't see the cloud disappearing, and I do not see the data center disappearing. I see them being closer to be used together, and that decision being made somewhere in an automatic fashion. Do you go
Tony
here
Foster
versus here?
Tony Foster asked a question here, and I in chat, so I'm going to just give it. Ed, are you using AI in your security operations?
The SOC that I wrote does not use AI, just uses log analysis or machine learning. Do I see AI in security growing? Yes. There's a lot of AI in security today. And the biggest problem you have is when you use AI for anything, is how do you make sure it's duplicatable? So that if you had to do incident response on your AI, how do you do that? Because if you're using AI to do incident response or to sift through billions upon billions of log files, and you train it one way, Can somebody duplicate that? That's the digital forensics part. Can you duplicate it? And duplicating AI is actually very hard to do unless you have the right set of data. But yes, I see AI moving more and more into security, mainly because we're just dealing with tons of data. And that's hard to do. I mean, it takes more people to sift through the data than an AI could. Training that AI is crucial.
Right.
Training it to do the right thing. But yes,
Well,
I do
gotta
see
say,
it moving in.
I gotta say, today days old, thinking about digital forensics and AI. I hadn't really even thought of that, right? Like how, if you're going to go track down and do root cause analysis on a particular problem set, and AI is in that workflow, can you even get past that AI buffer, right? Because
Actually, you can. There are digital forensics approaches for AI that you have to take. Now, just so you know, everybody, I've been dealing with something I call large-scale cloud forensics projects for 20 plus years. I started picking it up because think of it this way, back 20, 24 years ago, a long time. I've been doing this since 2004. But the large-scale cloud forensics problem was the FBI, the jurisdictional law enforcement, used to just walk in and pull all the hosts. A number of clouds were literally taken down because all the machines were taken. So large scale cloud forensics is how do you make that happen without that happening?
Taking the hardware,
You keep the hardware, but take the data, right?
Take the data.
Approaches, and it's actually possible. We solved the data gathering problems. We solved the storage problems because storing, and effectively we were talking petabyte scale. That's where we started our thinking on this. And I did some talks on RSA on this, which actually the conferences and talking at conferences and actually being part of the audience and working with CTOs, which I did with RSA and VMware, and working with the engineers, and just having the knowledge I have comes from the community. The talks at the conferences are giving back to the community, sharing your knowledge. It's just yet another outlet. And I so enjoyed doing that because I was able to just do a research project or do a talk on what I was doing. I mean, I was on the brown bag talking about how to talk at a conference.
Right. Yep.
You know, even to this day, I'm still nervous at conferences. Talking when I go talk. Once you get talking, that nervousness goes away.
Right.
But, you know, I still have something in my hand I'm playing with, you know, because that's just how I get over that. But it was just an interesting, you can give back in so many ways. It doesn't have to be technical. It can be incredibly non-technical. I've given help to people on their vExpert admission
Applications.
yes, the vExpert applications. A lot of us vExpert pros, we were glad to help you with your application, and we do. Well, I've given advice on how to talk at community everything, or even at a conference if it's your first time talking. I've helped mentor people. I've helped mentor people in security. Mentoring is a big way of giving back for me. It's different today than it was back then. I don't do as many blog posts. I'm not the face of the community. Right. One time I kind of was. You know, all of us people that have been around for 16 years have been. But a lot of us have just kind of gone back to the background and do our thing in the background by helping the community. For example, can we announce what was the big change, Eric, that we made to the vExpert site?
Not yet. No, we're not allowed. We're not talking about any of that yet. No,
okay.
No, that one's off limits. We will be making some announcements pre-explore. So if you're listening to this and you made it to the end of the podcast, listeners, I will say that Edward has been helping us, and we've been working with Edward on one of the major changes that's going to happen when we at Explore, when we announce some community elements that will be changing, all not good or bad, just going to be changing. And so we'll
For
get
the
to
better.
Yeah.
It's for the better, in my opinion. Just
Yeah.
as a hint to everybody, I think it's
Yeah,
for
hint
the
to
better. But those types of things where I help out the vExpert pros, I help out the vExperts. That's what I like doing now. I like being more kind of behind the scenes than up front.
I do have a hard stop that my manager is going, where are you? Why aren't you coming? Right. Let me say finishing podcast, need 2 more min. There. Now I can we can wrap this up. So Edward, like, you're still part of the community. There are new younger people that are, showing up in the community. We still have William Lamb and Duncan Epping and everybody else doing their things. It's interesting to see how the next generation will step up and the channels they'll work on and what they'll work on as we age out of the world here sooner or later. Right. But,
Agreed. I'm
yeah.
actually fascinated by watching the community change.
Right.
And new people come on. And I enjoy that. It's actually quite joyful to watch the new people come in to their own.
Yep. Well, thanks a lot for coming on and
My
talking
pleasure.
about that. And thanks for all the work you've been doing, helping us with the things we're not ready to announce yet. And when we do, we'll let everyone know your role in it. And I enjoy that. And I enjoy you helping out, right? And working on things that you've worked on for so many years. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Edward.
That's why I do those.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, good to touch base with everybody. We're going to skip the barbecue report because I'm already getting yelled at here for being late. So we'll be back here again next week, and maybe we'll do some learn before you go, what to know before you go to explore. The soft shoes and good things like that. So until then, everybody go get some good barbecue, and we'll be back here again next week. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks.